I am going to introduce right now her deputy manager, Kelly Merrill. And Kelly will speak on Jill.
Thank you, Jackie. You're a legend. Want to give some props to Jackie for organizing this event and to the Portland Media Center for hosting us here today. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. We have the great privilege to live and work in Wabanaki territory, home of the Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Abenaki, Mi'kmaq, and Wolfstick tribes. We acknowledge the history of colonization, erasure, land theft, family separation, scat bounties, and genocide. We sit uncomfortably with these truths so we can grow. It is only in the listening and in the silence that we can reflect upon that violent history and its presence today, both in our society and in ourselves. It allows us to move from reflection into action with integrity and heart-centered wisdom to manifest a livable, just, and equitable future. Ask what you will do today to manifest that future. May all communities be sustained for the next 7 generations and beyond. Thank you. My name is Kelly Merrill, and I have the great honor and privilege of serving as the Deputy Campaign Manager for Green Party presidential candidate, Dr. Jill Stein. I'll start by reading a quote from Mario Savio as we honor the work of students across the country who continue to strenuously protest the slaughter of innocents in Gaza. There is a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part, and you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all. This is that moment. This is that movement. And we've got to make it stop. The genocide in Gaza, the desecration of the land, the poisoning of the air and water. Endless conquest, domination, war, and extraction, the hallmarks of empire, the exploitation of everything until nothing is sacred. We will disrupt, voice our opposition, and organize. We will use this platform of the presidential race to throw our bodies on the gears of this most odious machine. As we navigate the collapse of all these systems of empire and domination, there's no one I'd rather spend my days with but the people in this struggle, people like us here and across the country. Jill Stein has dedicated decades of her life toward the betterment of our world through her years of practicing medicine and through her work in what she calls political medicine. I work with her day in and day out. I room with her on the road and have been by her side for countless engagements with communities. And I don't know anyone who is more dedicated to all the causes we care about. She has demonstrated that dedication again and again and again, and in deep solidarity with our communities. Whether supporting housing first, workers' rights, 2S LGBTQIA rights, harm reduction, land back, reparations, an end to the war on drugs, communities with disabilities, indigenous sovereignty, women's reproductive rights, immigrant rights, healthcare as a human right, the right to protest, the rights of the planet, and to clean food, air, and water, or an end to the bloodshed, an end to the genocide in Gaza or the Congo. She is our candidate because she is the only candidate who will represent our interests on the ballot. Multitudes already claim her as their president. It is my great honor to welcome Dr. Jill Stein.
So hi, everybody. It's really great to see you here. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for leading the charge for an America and a world that works for all of us. We deserve that, we need that, and we don't have that. Because right now the world is working for, you know, the 1%, maybe the 5 or 10%. But for everyday working people, for marginalized communities, indigenous, communities of color, youth, elders, immigrants, and indeed the majority of working people, it's just not working. And our lives really are a series of crises every day. Can we keep a roof over our heads? Over 50% of people who rent their housing now are severely economically strapped, paying more than 30% of their income just to keep that roof over their heads. And if you're doing that, you don't have a whole lot to put food on the table or pay your student debt. 44 million, you know, who are trapped in this endless cycle of student debt. When our dear President Biden reinstituted those payments last fall, I think it was, when he didn't have to do it, there was nothing about it that needed to be resumed at that time. Something like 40% of all student debtors defaulted on their payments because it's hard enough just keeping a roof over your heads right now. We're looking at 63% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, child poverty rates that have doubled, homelessness rates which are off the charts, record high evictions. And yet, you know, at the blink of an eye, when the war machine wants more money, they get it. You know, no questions asked, no preconditions, no requirements. Most recently, this $90 billion bill, about $26 billion, I think, was for the ongoing genocide in Gaza, another $60 billion for a completely unnecessary and tragic war that is really bleeding out the people of Ukraine for no good reason at all. You know, there's endless war. There's endless money for endless war. There's also endless money for Wall Street bailouts, the trillion plus that was mobilized for the crooks on Wall Street when they crashed the economy in 2008, recklessly gambling with the public's money. And the public was saying, don't bail them out. But of course, Congress went ahead within 1 week and bailed them out to the tune of trillions of dollars. Trillions also on tax breaks, tax giveaways, we should say, really for the wealthy. At the end of World War II, wealthy corporations were paying the equivalent of 6% of GDP to, you know, as their share of giving back. Well, that 6% of GDP has now gone down to 1% of GDP. So, you know, those who are benefiting most are not paying up, are not holding their fair share. So what's wrong with this picture? Actually, everything is wrong with this picture, especially that the American people want to do the right thing. And there's consensus on all kinds of critical policies, from ending the genocide and creating a diplomatic solution, an immediate ceasefire. The American people across the political spectrum, by large numbers, want that. 68% of Americans, according to a Reuters poll a couple months back, and other polls are basically consistent with that. The American people want health care as a human right now, which would save us. It doesn't cost us. It would save us $500 billion a year to move to an improved Medicare for all, which just, it cuts out the waste, the paper pushing, the red tape, which now costs us 1 out of every 3 healthcare dollars we are putting into, you know, this insane machine, which keeps big pharma happy, it keeps the big insurers happy, but it really is depriving the American people of a basic healthcare system. So we're paying twice as much as the next biggest spender on healthcare, but we are, you know, really suffering the consequences with health statistics that rank us way down near the bottom of developed nations. So this is absolutely outrageous. We could create a rent control system right now across the country so that people don't have to worry about being thrown out of their rental housing and seeing the costs just constantly jacked up. We could stop the the private equity firms right now that are going in and buying up the housing that's available on the market and really driving up the cost of housing. We could be investing in what's called social housing or public housing to create high quality housing for everyday people, mixed income housing, where you don't get kicked out the minute you get a job and come out of the poverty level. We need high quality permanent housing for Americans who are largely locked out of it right now in huge numbers. If you look at polls among young people, half of people under age 25 now say that they describe themselves as hopeless about the future. And it's no surprise because young people have been thrown under the bus. They are just the latest demographic that's being exploited, that's subject to the predatory maneuvers of the of the economic and political elites, and young people are rightfully distressed about their future, also including the climate future. And while our president claims to be the friend of climate, for those who've actually taken a close look at the Inflation Reduction Act, it's got some good things. It's got some good window dressing, but at its core, it's basically a fossil fuels giveaway bill. It mandates, it requires 60 million acres of offshore waters be auctioned off every year. 60 million acres from a president who was going to shut down all new leasing on public lands for fossil fuels, all new extraction. 60 million a year for 10 years. 2 million acres a year onshore also to be auctioned off before any major renewable projects can be built. So this is just an incredible giveaway. The CMP corridor, for example, that the people of Maine wanted to shut down in order to preserve the real riches of Maine, the beauty, the forests, the critical, infrastructure for our climate. Maine voted to save that, right? And then it got overruled. And, what is this? Where is our democracy? Where is our democracy? Where is our democracy when it's AIPAC and the war contractors who are calling the shots in foreign policy? When the war in Afghanistan finally concluded after, 10 years, 20 years, and trillions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of deaths, that was supposed to be like our peace dividend. But what happened almost immediately was suddenly they concocted another reason to go to war in Ukraine and, continue to drain our budget, which gets drained to the tune of over 50%. Over half. It's about $1 trillion a year, and it's over half of our congressional budget is spent on these endless wars, which are not making us more secure. They're not making the world a more stable place. They're creating endless wars, failed states, mass refugee migrations, just one catastrophe after another, and a continuing series of endless so-called terrorist threats. It doesn't get better through more bombs and missiles. It's only getting worse. And we're being impoverished. So this war machine that runs both of the political parties, both of the parties for war and Wall Street, these parties are not meeting our needs. They are meeting the needs of the war contractors and the usual suspects and AIPAC. So we could fix this. It doesn't have to be that way. We could have an America and a world that works for all of us. We could be reducing the military budget, cut it by 50, 75%, and put those dollars into what we need here at home. We could have a Medicare for all, improved healthcare system right now, and it doesn't cost us anything. It actually saves us $500 billion a year. What's wrong with this picture when we can't even have motherhood and apple pie, which saves us money? What's wrong with the picture is that we have two predatory political parties working for the war machine and Wall Street, not for us. But here's the good news. In this election, the majority of Americans are now saying they have had enough of being thrown under the bus. It's some 63% of Americans now who say they are ready for an independent third party that's actually working in the public interest. And, you know, we're seeing the numbers off the charts. If you noticed what happened in New York State during their Democratic primary about 3 weeks ago, what happened was that about 12% voted uncommitted to Biden, that is, and that's remarkable in and of itself. But in addition to that, 83% of Democratic voters chose to stay home. 83% compared to the number that came out in 2020, which also had Joe Biden already really coronated as the winner, just like in this race. But back in 2020, people were ready to come out and work for him because they hadn't broken up yet with the Democratic Party. But now people are really in a way that they've had enough of this abusive relationship. They've also had enough of this nonsense that somehow Donald Trump is going to spoil the party, but Joe Biden didn't. You know, how do you get to be more of a fascist threat than sending in the militarized police who've been trained by the Israeli occupation forces to brutalize our campuses? You know, this is as fascistic as it gets. It's like in Atlanta, where the cop city is being built to further militarize our police underneath a totally democratic city government with Atlanta, where the people are vehemently against this, where the African American community is saying, don't take our precious open space, and where people have come out to defend their precious open space, and they're basically made into being eco-terrorists and are pursued under these draconian laws and are facing potentially decades, you know, as well as being shot, which one of this group was murdered in cold blood. This is what fascism looked like. And Cop City is not the only threat. Cop City is one of 65 or 70 such facilities that are now being built or are in the planning stages across the country. So our military, our police forces have been militarized, and this is a fascist threat. And if you look at what's going on our campuses, the kind of brutalization by the police, there was no need for police to have been brought in. These were peaceful, educational, multicultural, multi-religious gatherings going on. There was nothing that came anywhere close to being anti-Semitism. This was the opposite of anti-Semitism. This was real cultural appreciation and multi-ethnic, multi-religious appreciation. They held a big Seder at the Columbia University in New York City. They held a gigantic Seder for all the community to share in. So the anti-Semitism is a big smear. That's a big smear. Likewise, the notion that there's hate speech going on. The state of Israel can be criticized and must be criticized. It is conducting a genocide in no uncertain terms. And we, the people, have the right to say that. If the International Court of Justice is making that ruling, how is it that students and others are being criminalized and accused of being anti-Semitic for saying what the International Court of Justice has just concluded in all of its wisdom, saying what the United Nations and the General Assembly and even the Security Council in the one resolution that the U.S. did not veto, has all agreed that this is a horrific genocide. It must be stopped. We need a ceasefire immediately. And to call that hate speech is just plain propaganda, pure and simple. And it should be, completely contested when people try to push that on us. We are not spoilers. We are not anti-Semites. We are people who are standing up for our basic human values and our basic American values. What happens in Gaza matters to all of us because we are seeing the murder and torture of children on an industrial scale. The the destruction of universities, of hospitals, of our most sacrosanct institutions are being utterly crushed and destroyed right now with impunity. And our government, under Joe Biden, and the misleadership in the Congress across the board, they are basically giving a free pass here. And given that Bibi Netanyahu wants to engage us in a war with Iran, a potentially devastating war, which could globalize, which could also go nuclear. And the U.S. and Joe Biden are allowing this to happen when they could shut it down in the blink of an eye, like Ronald Reagan did back in the 1980s, by simply picking up the phone and telling Israel to call your troops off, bring them home, end the missile strikes, and they did. Joe Biden pretends to be powerless over Bibi Netanyahu, who is jerking him around with his little finger with complete impunity. The U.S. is providing 80% of the weapons. We are providing the diplomatic cover. We are providing the funding. We are in charge here, and our government needs to get with the program and act like an adult in the room, not like a tool of the fascistic government of apartheid Israel. We can close this down, and if perchance we have the opportunity to do that, if we do find our way to the White House, and I wouldn't rule that out, we'll come back to that in a moment, but if we do have a chance to turn the White House into a greenhouse and make the world a better place on that account alone, the genocide ends immediately with a phone call that it's over. Bibi Netanyahu, it's over. Joe Biden is trying to pass the baton, being the commander-in-chief, to Bibi Netanyahu, who gets to make his own decisions, no prior clearance required, and embroil us, endanger our troops. Tens of thousands of U.S. troops are in the Middle East who become sitting ducks as this conflict enlarges, which is what it's doing right now. We say we take back the role of commander-in-chief from Bibi Netanyahu and from the White House, which has really betrayed that responsibility. There are three candidates now who are pro-war, pro-genocide, and anti-worker. That is Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and Robert F. Kennedy, who pretends to be anti-war, but then you have to pretend that the Middle East doesn't exist and that it doesn't have a war. It has a very big war, probably the most dangerous and consequential of the many wars being conducted by the United States right now. So there are essentially three pro-war, pro-genocide candidates who will all be competing for the pro-war vote. We will be the one, and in fact we are the one and only anti-war, anti-genocide, pro-worker, climate emergency campaign on track right now to be on the ballot across the country. This is just an unbelievable perfect storm because there will be three of them against one of us. We can be a unifying campaign for anyone who's not brain dead and asleep at the wheel and actually wants to stand up and take our future back from the brink of nuclear war, climate catastrophe, and proliferating genocide. Those who have the insight to stand up, as Frederick Douglass told us we must. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. We have an opportunity that is absolutely unprecedented to stand up and make that demand. When you have a four-way race with four high-powered campaigns, the vote can be divided in such a way that it's possible to win with as little as 26% of the vote and still win a majority of the Electoral College votes. We can talk about how that would happen if you want to go into the weeds on that. But the main point here is that this election, the general election, could be won with as little as 26% of the vote. The last national poll showed us at 4%, but a more recent poll, which was done in Wisconsin, which can be seen as an indicator, showed us at 8%, and in fact at 22% for voters 30 and under, who are kind of the sign of which way the wind is blowing. So there is every reason now to stand up and recognize what an absolutely life-changing, history-changing opportunity is falling into our laps, because people like you have been working for a long time to build a different kind of politics. And kudos to the people of Maine in particular, who've been leading the way on campaign finance reform and clean elections funding, and leading the way on ranked choice voting, liberating us from those ridiculous fears, those concocted fears that are basically engineered in order to extort the vote. We have a right to vote for a candidate who represents our values and our wishes. In fact, it's not only okay to do that, it's absolutely essential, because democracy needs a moral compass. Democracy needs an explicit agenda. And if you're always voting for the lesser evil, if you can even figure out who the lesser evil is in this race, and good luck with that, but the lesser evil disappears you. It eliminates your political power, and it eliminates your moral compass. We have to bring a moral compass to this. If people are only voting against the candidate they hate the most, instead of the candidate who represents them, then, we don't have a direction forward. We're just kind of randomly cruising. And with the major parties basically funded by Warren Wall Street, they're each kind of creeping further and further to the right, which is why we see the eruption of fascism now in this country. It's not just Donald Trump and the Republicans. It's also the Democrats. They're leading the charge on censorship and also police violence and this violent training and these wars and the genocide. I mean, in so many ways, Joe Biden is the fascist threat of the hour right now. But they're both equally capable of it. And why in the world should we settle for two utterly disastrous and evil choices? We need to stand up, especially in a race like this one, where it is not only a good and moral thing to do, it's actually the pragmatic thing to do. We have nothing to lose here. We have everything to gain, including our futures, the future of the planet, whether we're going to go crashing into climate change. And, that's another threat that's used to try to extort the vote. If you look at what Joe Biden has done, which is not only, the pitfalls of the Inflation Reduction Act, if you actually look at it, and the various pipelines that he's been behind. But also there are these 22 liquid natural gas export facilities. And I don't know if you've been paying attention to them. There's something of a temporary hold on this, but it's just a temporary hold. It's a pre-election ploy, so don't fall for it. If they really intended to stop it, they would do that. But they don't, because they are a creature of their big donors. And I have to say, I wish I would find myself wrong about this. But every time I have, voiced utter disdain and skepticism for their promises, that skepticism has been, completely fulfilled and warranted. There's absolutely no reason to believe that they're changing now. Like, we're not seeing Joe Biden agree to change despite this incredible uprising from our students in this country and around the world. No, he says quite plain and simply he's not going to change. He doesn't change, and he hasn't really changed. I don't think it's just his senility. I think he's always been this way. If you look at him, he's been really quite consistent over whatever it is, 40, 50 years. So on these LNG plants, they amount to, get this, so LNG is basically methane. It is the most greenhouse gas polluting substance there is. It's extremely dangerous. This is why they are having this orgy of fracking right now. And that all goes back to the Nord Stream pipeline. They blew up this pipeline, and then there were high fives all around because, wow, we have this whole new market now. We have this whole new market. We have shut off Russian gas. Now we can supply that gap here with U.S. Gas. So there's been an explosion of fracking, which has been going on for some time, but now they have a huge market. And that's why these 22 new export facilities are being built to basically fill the marketing opportunity that was created by this greatest act of environmental sabotage ever. If you spray paint a coal plant or a pipeline, you're going to jail now, maybe for 10 years, maybe even more. You're an eco-terrorist. But if you blow up the biggest supply of methane gas, which is the most destructive climate gas that there is, no questions asked, and in fact, they're covering it up, which is the most incriminating piece of this picture, that they refuse to allow this act of sabotage to even be investigated. So in the follow-up to that explosion, that sabotage, they're building these 22 LNG plants. And the bottom line on those plants is this: according to the Sierra Club, not a radical fringe organization, those 22 LNG export facilities are the equivalent of 440 new coal plants. So this actually goes way beyond anything that Donald Trump and the Republicans have done. So when they talk about how horrible Donald Trump will be for the climate, just remember that Joe Biden has made Donald Trump look like a climate activist by comparison. So this is nonsense. It's our lives that are being toyed with, that are, it's our future that is being destroyed. So this is our opportunity to stand up and say, we know what you're about. We know where you're coming from. We're not falling for your propaganda anymore. And that's what we can do right now. And we are coming up in the polls, as I mentioned, even before mainstream media has seen fit to cover us. Democracy Now!, they're happy to cover Cornel West because he's a solo candidate. He's a new voice in the political scene, not getting on the ballot, not understanding how to do that. You have to run a few of these races in order to understand this system. It's constructed to be kind of beyond reasoning and rational thought. You just have to kind of grapple with it for a few years to understand how to do it. So they're happy to cover Dr. West, who has a magnificent voice, but who will not be on the ballot, who will not be a choice. But for our campaign, it's a little threatening to cover us because we mean business. We really are a threat to empire. We really know how to play this game. This is our third time around here. We know how to do this. We know what needs to be done. And right now, the name of the game is completing our ballot struggles. And the good news there is that we have 75% of the work done. So it's like 1 million signatures in total that you need. We have 3/4 of those ballot lines basically over and done with. We have a big fight right now going on in New York State. This is the major stumbling block to getting on the ballot across the country. And if you're not on the ballot across the country, you don't count, and you won't be in the media, and they will, it's hard to win the majority of the Electoral College if you're not on in New York. There's a lot of Electoral College votes in New York. So it's really critical for us to be this full-bore challenge. But we are on the way. We have a lot of volunteers. We are raising money for this. 24/7, it's all about New York. It's going to be decided in the next 3.5 weeks. Governor Cuomo raised the requirement in a poison pill that was buried in the budget 2.5 years ago. So it was not noticed. It was not debated. He tripled the requirement. So it went from 15,000 signatures in 6 weeks to 45,000 signatures in 6 weeks. That's a lot to do. RFK is going to get on the ballot because he's got some very deep pockets. He has a super PAC funded by a handful of billionaires, representing the worst of our current system and its inherent corruption. It's legal corruption, but it's corruption. Super PACs are a vehicle for the super rich to basically buy out politicians and our elections. And so RFK has plenty of that. He's buying his way onto the ballot. He will be there. The Democrats and Republicans are already there. And then it will probably be us. So once again, it will be our campaign representing political integrity, representing jobs at good wages, a minimum wage that needs to be kicked up. You know, Joe Biden promised $15 an hour. Well, unfortunately, we've gone way beyond that now. It needs to be 20 or 25, depending on what part of the country you're in, to even have a fighting chance. So we've got that agenda for working people, for the climate crisis, for ending endless war and genocide. We are the one such campaign. If we get on in New York, the fight has really begun. And this is what they're terrified of. The Democratic Party has already announced that they are hiring as they described it, an army of lawyers to try to nitpick us off the ballot, to try to find technicalities to throw us off. And they actually say this even without any sense of shame. That's how incredibly, what can I say, out of touch they are to know that that's not okay with the American people. We believe in fair play, we believe in democracy, and we demand choices. This is clear above everything else. So the Democrats just keep shooting themselves in the foot. And we are standing up and leading the charge for the democracy we deserve, for the future we deserve. This actually is within our reach more than ever. And with that, I thank you for your kind attention to get this discussion kicked off. And I really look forward to hearing your thoughts and your questions and your observations. So thank you all so much for being here today.
So that we can get that recorded. Jill will stay over there.
Okay, sounds good.
Hello.
Hi.
I would like to know what your views are on public health mandates such as we saw with COVID-19.
Okay. So I have a fairly nuanced view about this from being a healthcare provider myself. And from seeing how healthcare information will change study by study. And when the COVID crisis first hit, and members of my family were very much on the front lines, I kind of wanted to know everything that I could learn about the vaccine. And I took about 3 weeks out to just read up on the vaccine and became very comfortable that in this setting, people at high risk were going to be much better off getting vaccinated than not. That was a moment in time. We are now well along. My view here now is that as an individual, it's really hard to keep up. We really need regulatory boards that we can trust. And we don't have that right now. We don't have it on vaccines. We don't have it on the environment. We don't have it in the FAA. We don't have it in the in drug regulation. We basically have the best democracy money can buy, and we have a revolving door so that people move from industry into our boards. And I have stopped trying to keep up on the data. It's just, if you are leading a normal life, you're not going to be able to keep up with the data. And if you are not keeping up with the data, then you are not providing the best information and the best decisions. In my own struggles with the healthcare system, I've come to view two pieces as really essential to good healthcare regulation. One is the information, which need to come from uncompromised sources, and having public values also incorporated into our regulatory boards so that we can make decisions that the American people can trust. The American people do not trust our regulatory boards now, like they don't trust our government, they don't trust our judicial system, they don't trust our media. We've kind of lost the fabric of trust because, again, we have the best democracy that money can buy. So where do I stand on this? Historically, you know, vaccines didn't just become an issue or a subject of public concern. This has been around for quite some time. But the American people used to trust the decisions of our regulatory boards. We've lost that trust. I myself have never supported mandates because you can't mandate compliance. People will quit their jobs or stop doing what they have to do if they don't trust the institution that's providing the regulations. So I don't favor mandates. I favor having regulatory institutions that we can trust and making our decisions transparent and clear to the American people. I have been involved in medicine for long enough that I know that you'll get the latest public health study. If it's a good study, it may overturn everything that came before it. So we need good institutions and research that is not funded by the industry, and we need regulatory boards which are accountable to us, the American people. We need to get money out of politics, and especially we need to close the revolving door so that Big Pharma is not sitting in our regulatory institutions. Thank you.
Hi. Before I ask my question, for the record, I have 6 cousins who died from the booster. I mean, within days, weeks. Heart attacks, blood clots. 3 of them were siblings. But my issue here is, well, let me start off by saying I am a member representative on behalf of the Food and Water Watch in the lawsuit against the EPA under TSCA regulations regarding the science documenting the developmental neurotoxicity of fluoride, consistent with the fluoride in water systems. I have medical reason not to consume fluoride. And I've been told by the chair of Board of Health that people like me are collateral damage. I like to say that medical mandates are politics pretending to be science. They suppress the science, they silence the voices of experts, and they stifle the voices of victims. So I'd like to know what your position is on fluoridation and what you will do about it.
So I have to admit I haven't followed the data on fluoridation in quite a while, but I do know that going back like 15 years, there were real concerns about health consequences of fluoridation.
Well,
so
let me advise you to go to fluoridelawsuit.com.
Okay.
I'm an analyst.
Great.
I have compiled an annotated bibliography of science published since 2015, peer-reviewed, published science in credible medical journals about the damage to thyroids, kidneys, immune system, etc.
Great. That's really important, and in my view, that's the kind of research that independent, watchdogs and consumers should not have to do ourselves. We deserve to have regulatory boards that are acting in a precautionary fashion, and they don't do that right now. And I myself was very involved in trying to get certain toxic pesticides off the market. I worked with a very large public health coalition for maybe 10 years, working with Physicians for Social Responsibility, which was kind of my reference group at that time. They used to do a lot of work on toxics. And we finally got this one toxic pesticide, so-called Dursban, also known as chlorpyrifos. It's been off the market now for maybe 10 or 15 years. We finally got it off the market, and everybody was cheering and celebrating. And then I thought, oh, great, one toxic pesticide down, 450 more to go, and it only takes us 10 years and like an act of nature in order to move our regulatory boards to act on our behalf, not on behalf of the chemical industry or whoever else is benefiting from this. So yeah, I think we need a fundamental overhaul of our institutions so that we are watchdogs. That's what they're supposed to do, but they're not. They're usually defending the profits of the
most definitely.
big spenders.
I do hope you look into fluoridation. You can start with fluoridelawsuit.com.
Great. Thank you very much.
Ready?
Go ahead.
Hi, Jill. Good
Hi.
to see you in Portland again.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask a new version of a question I mentioned to you like 9 years ago, and you don't have to remember. So I really appreciate your full-throated pushback against the military-industrial war machine police state that we've constructed over the decades. To kind of focus it pragmatically in the scenario when you get that 26%, you're the president-elect, and then the transition happens. And the Pentagon officers and the espionage types, they line up outside your door one by one, and they're going to do a full court press to get you to back off from your 50% cut idea. So as a pragmatic matter, given how Washington works, do you have any thoughts on how you're going to navigate that transition?
Absolutely. And this is why a grassroots movement is essential to get us into the White House, and then a grassroots movement is going to be essential for every priority that we undertake, because it's not going to happen without all of us. Barack Obama broke all kinds of barriers to get into the White House, but then he sent his ground troops home, and he said, your work is over. And how did we know that? Well, the first thing he did was appoint Larry Summers, the architect of the Wall Street meltdown, who had repealed the Glass-Steagall protection for banking, basically for commercial banking. He, who had done that under Bill Clinton, was coming back under Barack Obama to deal with the Wall Street meltdown. So it was pretty clear where this was going. And, goodbye ground troops. But, that's because he had corporations behind him, and that was his goal. That's not my goal. I didn't give up my life, my life as a health provider and a mother, in order to just let the world go to hell in a handbasket here. This is about saving our lives and our children's future. And for us to do that, we're going to have to do it together. So everybody's on notice right now that if we turn the White House into a greenhouse, nobody goes home. And so how do you go from that? How do you go from a grassroots movement to changing the Pentagon budget? How do you do that? We have to bring back town hall meetings so that our congressional representatives and our senators who no longer meet with their constituents will have to do that. And the White House at least has the bully pulpit, and we can hold their feet to the fire and help empower communities to demand that their elected officials represent them, so that we are not squandering our precious tax dollars on the war contractors, which is basically where the Pentagon money goes right now. Instead, we're cutting that budget and the Pentagon budget, and we're putting those dollars into healthcare and education and housing, and bringing up a common floor across the country for our public schools. Why should your quality of school depend on your zip code? No, we should have a common floor. It should not depend on the property tax in your community. We should have a common floor so that everyone, has quality public schools. We can do that when we start cutting the Pentagon budget. So the president is always considered, the commander-in-chief. Well, for us, the president is going to be the organizer-in-chief, who helps us ensure that we are flexing our muscles as everyday people in our community, instructing our elected representatives in what they have to do, because that's what they're supposed to do, is represent us. And it's not only the town hall meetings, it's also congressional hearings, so that we're restarting the likes of the church committees. And, we are shining a bright light on what exactly, what happens with this Pentagon budget. Not only that they lose the money, they can't say where it's gone, but even look at the rest of it, like these 70-some regime change operations that we've conducted around the world since the Second World War. This has been an absolute disaster, and creates the failed states, the mass refugee migrations, just the utter chaos that's going on around the world. We are not in a state of global affairs right now that's going to last very long. The U.S. thinks that we are the monopolar, the unipolar power in the world, and we walk around the world like we are the bully in the china shop, and we are trying to dictate policy to Russia and China and and India and Pakistan and a whole lot of countries around the world who are not buying it anymore, and they now have a more powerful economic alliance than we do, and we are just running into these very dangerous confrontations around the world. There are 3 of them right now. In the words of Jeffrey Sachs, whose endorsement we just gained last week, basically, he says that the Democrats and Republicans are in a race right now to see who can get us to World War III soonest. It's like you don't have to have a whole lot of special skills and policies to just be head and shoulders above these war criminals who are heading up the other parties and who are also leading Congress. We have an incredibly depraved political system right now, which is dragging us all down with it. So, that's kind of where we start, and that's how we will move forward, one issue at a time. On day 1, by the way, the genocide ends. And that doesn't take any congressional action. That just takes sanity on the part of the president, who has the power to stop this by picking up the phone. Go ahead.
Dr. Stein, welcome back to Maine.
Thank you.
We
It's great to be
I'm
here.
glad you're here. Could you talk to us about how we build successfully to secure a woman's right to choose on a national basis?
Yes.
How do we get there?
Yes.
Thank you.
So it's a travesty that we are here right now, that we are having to fight to recover the right to choose where the states are not providing it. So the main message I have here is, remember what happened under Richard Nixon, one of the most conservative, reactionary presidents we ever had. We achieved women's right to choose, basically pressuring to achieve a Supreme Court decision from a very conservative court under a very conservative president. We got women's right to choose. We got the EPA. We got the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act. We stopped the war in Vietnam. We did that because we were mindful of our power. We have that power right now. We absolutely have that power, certainly on women's right to choose. There is an overwhelming support to protect women's right to choose. And Congress could have enacted that. The president could have enacted that. Both Biden and Obama promised it was going to be their first priority, and they promptly forgot about that because it's such a good fundraising issue. But they could have codified Roe at the federal level. That could have been done a long time ago. So that's one thing which will be a priority, is for us to push for codifying women's right to choose. And again, how do we do that? We do that by pressuring our elected representatives, holding their feet to the fire, holding town hall meetings, and so on. I don't think it's fundamentally different from the rest of the agenda, and in many ways it should be even easier because people are so impassioned and there's so much support for it. Thank you for that question. Okay, great. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Jill.
Thank you.
My name is Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
And I come with 2 questions, but the first one comes to mind. As a mom of a special needs child, how can we fast-track educators instead of our governor here in the state of Maine is asking that we just take in bodies to fill positions so that they will have I consider it not having education with validity at that point. So I just would like to know, can we ask maybe the Department of Education to, think of a way to fast track? As a nurse, there was some fast tracking that just happened in the last 10 years. And I think that educators need the same type of, guidance on that.
Absolutely. So Ashley's question, in case it didn't get picked up on the live stream, is, and Ashley is a special needs child, is the parent of a special needs child?
I'm a parent of special needs children.
Okay, parent of special needs children. How can we meet the very urgent and compelling needs of special needs children? There aren't enough teachers, there aren't enough special educators in our school, and, this is a really glaring problem. This is a fundamental human rights problem for children. We need good qualified teachers, and for special needs children, those needs are all the more urgent because there are challenges. It's not always intuitive how you can help provide support and education for special needs children. So we badly need special needs educators. And yes, I mean, this should be a no-brainer, and this is an absolute priority. This is part of our educational priorities because so many children now actually have special needs in our education system. There are so many ways that our education system is failing all children and especially special needs children. So this is inexcusable that those needs are just really being neglected, and these families are being thrown under the bus. So absolutely, that's an easy one for sure. Did you have a second question, or did that get covered in there?
I'll ask it after.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Thank you, Ashley. And let's see. I think we have another question coming up.
Yes, indeed. First of all, hello. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I've got two very practical questions.
Great.
Right. Based on what I've heard today, looks like everything hangs on two things. One is New York. All right. So here's my question on that. You taking up a collection after this is done? I'll give you a boost.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Yes.
So that's the first.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right.
A round of applause for that.
And I'm going to
Absolutely.
encourage everybody in this room to do the same thing.
Yeah. Great.
All right.
Yeah.
Second
thank you.
thing is control of Congress.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Are you folks developing a field of candidates
Yes. Yes.
to vote the present gang out?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, great.
Could you add some detail on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. So we don't have enough candidates to constitute a majority, but we certainly have enough candidates to form a strong, a strong group within Congress. But we're going to go beyond that, and that's where this whole notion of president as organizer-in-chief, because we need to force our representatives to do the right thing. And what will force them, well, there's always money. We don't have that money. And in fact, we intend to remove that money so that we have public financing of our elections. We're not there yet. It'll take a little while to get there. So we still have to deal with this very corrupting influence in all of politics and in Congress. So two things there. Again, it's the bully pulpit of the president who can call out and shine a bright light on elected officials who are taking money from APAC or from the health insurance industry or from big pharma, who are not serving our interests, to be calling them out, to have congressional hearings so that, people can count on the truth coming out. We have to fight this through transparency and accountability, and then having our hearings in town hall meetings, so that again people's feet are being held to the fire, so we can drive responsible decisions on behalf of everyday people, everyday voters who are going to be hearing about it in real time. This isn't just a secret that's going to be kept until the next election. As these bills are being discussed and debated, town hall meetings are being held, and your reps have to show up and have to face their voters, face the possibility of a recall if they are standing in your way. Let me say, we also hope on day one to initiate antitrust proceedings against big corporate media that kind of dominates the airwaves right now and that protects business as usual. We need to break down the corporate consolidation of our media so that we have debate and discussion, and we don't have journalists who are mostly practicing careerism and they are being lapdogs instead of watchdogs. We need the media to be discussing this, not simply providing cover for the usual suspects. So those are some of the things, but it will take all of us, and just know that come November, whatever it is, 7th or 8th, you're not off the hook. If we win, we're all on for the fight of our lives that will go on for quite some time. But it'll be so worth it. We have to make this happen.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
thank you for traveling to Portland to be with us today.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments very much. My question is about access to healthcare services, and it concerns the younger people in our nation who are coming off their parents' health insurance. They may be working part-time. They may also be studying to improve their lives, and they do not wish to be tied to an employer for health care. What kind of solution do you have in mind for those people who are trying to make their way through life?
Great point, and that's a really critical issue. Another way in which young people are being really thrown to the dogs because they don't have the access to the good jobs. You know, they're getting jobs without health insurance. You know, so once they're off their parents' plan, you know, it's like good luck. Good luck with your student debt. Good luck finding a job. Good luck finding a place to live, and good luck finding health care in this society that provides a sick care system, not a health care system. But then you got to pay to the teeth to, you know, be able to afford the system. So this is why a major priority, and probably our first campaign, is going to be for healthcare as a human right through an improved Medicare for all system. So this is like Medicare, except that it fills in some of the holes, like for, you know, pharmaceuticals and so on, and it ensures that you are covered. You don't have to wait till you're 65 years old. You are covered from the moment of conception, actually, cradle to grave. So people are fully covered, and covered in all the areas that previously are uncovered. So dental care, mental health care, home care. If your parents are sick and would like to live out their days at home, they can stay home. They can have home care and home health aides. They don't have to spend themselves into poverty and then go into some kind of a Medicaid facility, which will be very anonymous and not a happy place to live out your days whatsoever. So all of this becomes possible under Medicare for All. And the amazing thing is that it actually saves us money. It doesn't cost us money. It saves us $500 billion a year, and that's after everyone has been covered and coverage has been expanded to be quite complete. So people are generally quite satisfied with Medicare, except for some, you know, holes that have been knocked into it. But this basically creates that possibility. And 1 out of every $3 right now is spent on red tape, paper pushing, big CEO salaries, advertising campaigns. That's where 1 out of every 3 healthcare dollars goes. And that's just outrageous considering how urgently we need quality care in this country. So we can have that. We recoup that wasted money. Overhead goes from 33% in the current system down to 3% under Medicaid. So this is a no-brainer. It's a complete indictment of our current government system that we don't have that now. The American people want this, and that will be one of our first priorities, is to hold their feet to the fire and ensure that we get this as our first act of our new administration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello. Carolyn Chakotch, and it's, oh, right, this.
Yes, right, just for recording.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
this
you.
is a slightly different type of question. It's just
Sure.
what's been on my mind.
Great.
Okay. So I see we are very bad at some things. Like, we are bad at existential crises with, well, now, of course, I'm blanking. But climate change.
Yep.
Very bad at responding.
Yep.
COVID.
Yep.
Very bad at responding. And what I see right now is fascism. Very bad at responding. Because there's this looming terror.
Yes.
That's not, and we're addressing Gaza, and that's wonderful, and that should be, but we also need to be talking about this country.
Totally.
And what's out there, and what could be facing us, and the people who are, vulnerable to targeting. And how everybody else is going to be vulnerable sooner or later. If it happens, it won't just be us. How do we do this?
Great.
What are your thoughts?
Okay, terrific question. Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes. No, I'm gonna repeat that. the question is, how do we deal with these many existential crises that we're facing right now, from climate change to COVID, and in particular fascism? We really do have this fascist threat that is kind of expanding, you know, right in front of our eyes right now. And, you know, we've seen this growing for quite some time. Money in politics, for example, has been exploding. In 2016, that race had something like $7 billion worth of money pouring into it. Well, in the next race, in 2020, that $7 billion went to $14 billion. So there's all this money coming from deep pockets that's buying out our election system. That's just one piece of it. You know, then you have police violence and this fascist threat that we're seeing now being sent onto our campuses. These very violent police forces, in many cases, they have been trained by the Israeli occupation forces that are now in these international it's called law enforcement exchange programs, where they are teaching our police, our FBI, our ICE, you know, Border Patrol. They're teaching these horrific, dehumanizing, violent, dangerous tactics. We also have this program called the 1033 that's been around for at least 10 years, more than that, that moves surplus military equipment into our police forces in our cities and towns. So you have police forces who are now equipped not only, you know, with lasers and, I should say, what are they called? The tasers, thank you. Like, if only they were lasers. But it's tasers, you know, we're seeing students tased at Emory, where there's a militarized police force. We saw a student who was like handcuffed, face down on the ground, being tased. It's just unbelievable. And you have tanks and armored vehicles and all this riot gear. You know, if you look at the riot police being brought in to our colleges, they are creating the riot. There was no riot before they got there. They create the riot, them, and then the Zionist mob at UCLA, if you saw that being live streamed, which was horrific. And the police were on hold, you know, just let this Zionist mob come in with their fireworks, throwing fireworks into the encampments, toxic chemicals, mace, batons, pieces of the barricades, just battering people, sending several people to the hospital. And they just allowed that to go on. But, you know, but then they'll send in the riot police to just to pummel ordinary peaceful protesters just exerting their constitutional rights. So this is as dangerous a sign of fascism as any that we've seen. And then, you know, the genocide itself is a hallmark of fascism too. So we don't have to wait for Donald Trump to see the fascist threats to our democracy. We have those fascist threats right now, which are doing perfectly well under Joe Biden and the Democrats, like Cop City, for example, under the Democratic administration of the city council in Atlanta. So what do we do about fascism? You know, there are, if you look at kind of the history of where fascism erupts, one thing that drives fascism is when working people feel like their security is just going to hell in a handbasket, when everyday people are feeling very threatened. It's a great time for demagogues to come in and set people, you know, against each other, to create divisions and target vulnerable populations, whether it's immigrants or Muslims, Jews, you know, gypsies, socialists. That's what fascism looked like. And as Bernie Sanders himself was saying in 2016, if you want to answer these kind of fascist threats, the most critical thing to do is to address the urgent economic needs of working people. So in that sense, that's built into our agenda already to ensure that we all get health care, you know, from the get-go, that we have living wages, that we have the right to a job, that we have health care as a human right, etc., that we have access to affordable housing. So we have to relieve this sense of incredible economic emergency and crisis to allow people to settle down and not be kind of recruited by demagogues who are trying to pit us against each other. That's one piece of it. Another is just standing up for our basic democratic rights. We need our rights of free speech, our right to protest, our rights of privacy, and also demilitarizing our cities and towns, which have all been militarized with this militarized police. We need to hold police accountable so that they are so that communities are running their police force instead of having police force running the communities. We need to get with the program and stop this foreign policy of endless war everywhere all the time, especially war against people with dark skin, which is essentially the wars that we've been conducting everywhere. So there are many things that are subject to change. It's hard to just go out and grab fascism by the throat, but you can go out and you can grab the drivers of fascism and eliminate them, starting pretty quickly on day one.
And if I might follow up just for a minute.
Sure.
One of the things that scares me about it is, yes, fascism, but also the silence around fascism.
Oh, yes.
That's
Yes.
like, where are the people in the streets? They're not in the streets. Where is the response? Why, I walk through the streets and think, wow, these people have no idea that in 6 months we could be in a fascist state or something. It's just so invisible. And it's showing up in pockets. I see little pockets of fascism here and there. But it's the silence that I find so unnerving.
And a lot of that, I think it's kind of an engineered silence. And people are told, oh, you don't dare criticize Joe Biden because then you're going to be strengthening the hand of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is going to bring fascism. I think we have to be, we have to stand up and call out fascism that we have right now and not be intimidated by this voter shaming and voter blaming that's trying to engineer, another yet another chapter in fascism, because Democrats are not the solution to fascism. And if you look at what's driving Republican extremism, people are not voting for Donald Trump as much as they're voting against Joe Biden. So when you have a servant of Wall Street who's making false promises to working people get very up in arms about that, and that's driving an awful lot of what's voting for Donald Trump. So we have to be willing to call out the political truth here and not be in this abusive relationship. It's like being in an abusive political relationship where people feel like, oh, they have to protect this relationship. They can't really criticize it because it's the only one that they have, and the next one might be worse, so they're not going to criticize. But actually, sometimes you have to just acknowledge that you are in an abusive relationship, and you have to stand up and get away and get your life back.
Can I just add to speak to your fears? Like, people's fears are making them complicit in this.
Yes.
Silence is violence. We know this.
Yes.
And we have to encourage others around us to find the courage of their own convictions.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Maybe we are good. Are we coming to, on our timing? So I'll just end with one parting thought. One last question? Yeah, why don't you go ahead and then I'll do a quick wrap up.
I'm sorry, I'm really happy to hear this topic of fascism being brought up, and I think one key to that will be overturning the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. That will be a really important thing. And I have been very concerned about fascism's rise in this country for a long time. Yeah. And I just want to, I'm going to read something that I wrote recently about this. I said, for the vote blue no matter who crowd who practically froth at the mouth proclaiming Zionist Biden is the only hope to save us from neo-Nazi Trump, ask yourself what an authoritarian regime looks like. Think about the definition of fascism, then consider Biden's decades-long legislative career and find answers to the following questions. Who wrote the racist 90s crime bill that has made the U.S. the country with the highest rate of mass incarceration in the world and exponentially expanded convict slavery? Who gave us qualified immunity and civil asset forfeiture?
Wow.
Who weakened bankruptcy protections, forcing millions of working people into debt slavery?
Great.
Who wrote the Patriot Act years before 9/11? Gave Congress the momentum to pass it, subjecting U.S. citizens to unprecedented government surveillance? Who has increased that warrantless surveillance in the last 3 years? Who is continuing to build the border wall and is still keeping kids in cages at the border? Who is now planning to house Haitian refugees at Guantanamo prison? Who is arming the Zionist occupiers to commit genocide in Palestine? Who is undermining international law, international courts, and the United Nations? Who is extraditing Assange for exposing U.S. war crimes? Who is funding the Pentagon at the highest rate ever? And who is amping up the nuclear arms race right now? It's not Trump.
That's right.
And I really, is such an important topic to me. So thank you for addressing.
And thank you for those beautiful words. I want to just speak to a subject raised by one of our commentators about, so New York is kind of the obstruction. If we can push back against New York, if we get on the ballot in New York, it's all downhill from there. There are a few more battles, but those will be somewhat routine. It's really New York that is the big hurdle. That is where they expect to just stop us in our tracks. And it's all about either going to carry signatures, and anyone can go to New York if you have time on your hands. We're really encouraging people. We will train you. We will find you a place to put you up. We have a lot of people who are coming in, a lot of people who are there, who are going to be carrying petitions. We go to campuses. We go to farmers markets. We go places, and people are hungry. People are really hungry for alternatives right now. So it's not like you have to twist arms. You're kind of doing people a favor. Remember, 83% of Democrats did not see fit to go out and vote for Joe Biden in their primary. So they're looking for something else. And the stronger we are out there, the more momentum it will create. So number one, if you're able to volunteer or even want to find out more about it, either talk to us today or you can go to our website, jillstein2024.com, and you can sign up to be part of the volunteer. If you can't help with the hands-on effort, if you can help with the donations, all of our donations right now are totally focused on New York. For Robert F. Kennedy to get on the ballot or other independent candidates, it's about $50 or $60 million. For us, it's about $2 million total, because we have most of it done and because we are a grassroots network that pretty much knows how to do this. So we have some fundraising to do. It's not at all what the the routine parties of war on Wall Street have to do. It's much less than that. But if you are in a position to make a contribution, that is absolutely huge. Whatever you can contribute is great. The rules allow you to contribute as much as $3,300. That is a big number, but it's tiny compared to the special runarounds that the Democrats do that allow you to write a check for $600,000. So they're collecting the really big money from the really big donors, and it all comes with strings attached, and we know where that goes. We're a small donor campaign. Any amount you can contribute, if you are able to contribute more than, $50, $60, you can go up to $3,300 for the primary. And that is huge. We probably have to raise some $250 million, I think it is, for New York. And we're actually well on the way to doing that. Sorry?
250,000.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. 250,000, of course. Yes. Right. 250, if only. Yeah. So it's a chunk of change. It's $250,000. But we are well on the way, actually, to doing that, and we have a lot of volunteers who are stepping up. So people are not going to go quietly into this dark night that is surrounding us right now. People are really feeling the courage of their convictions right now. Courage is contagious, and that courage is really consolidating right now around this election fight, because we have to fight this battle in the streets peacefully, hopefully. We need to fight on our college campuses, and we need to fight in the voting booth. We cannot give them a pass. And Frederick Douglass said it perfectly. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. We have to be that demand. We have to bring that demand to this election. And if we do, it's not hard to imagine how this election could actually be won at this time of unprecedented crisis, when the a 180 in our politics, a completely transformational development in our politics is in fact within our reach this time around. So it is extremely exciting, and in the words of Alice Walker, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. We have that power. 68% of Americans who want to end the genocide right now. 44 million Americans locked in debt under the current system. We could bail them out. 100 million Americans locked into medical debt. We could also bail them out and give everyone a high-quality healthcare system that's basically paid progressively through the progressive tax base. So we can fix this. We can create an America and a world that works for all of us. And this is the perfect storm to stand up and do that. If you have any questions or want to talk afterwards, we can do that as well. And again, you can contribute at our website, jillstein2024.com. And look forward to seeing you out there on the campaign trail. Thank you so much.